welcome to another episode of BHP Book Club. I am your host, Kelly Morgan. Today I'm speaking with author Denise Turney. She is a writer of mystery, romance, and literary novels. She's written titles called Love Pour Over Me, Porsche, Love Has Many Faces, Spirals, Gata's Glory, Gregory the Lionhearted, Long Walk Up, Rosetta the Talent Show Queen, and Awaken Blessings of Inner Love. She has been an author for more than 40 years. She shares her journey with us. She talks about all her books. She is a wonderful guest, and I loved having her on the show. Welcome to our book club, our newest member, author Denise Turney. Denise, thank you for being the newest member to the book club and being on the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous on this Thursday.
I'm so excited that you are here speaking with me today about your books. You are an author who's written many books, and I think it's wonderful when people like are authors and are writing several books. So kudos to you, and I want to talk about them all. But before we go there, I want to find out about your writing journey and how did that thought become a reality for you?
Thank you for the question. It's an interesting question. For me, my path was, to me, a little different. I know I also do a podcast, and when I ask authors whether I'm going to a book event, book festival, and I'm sitting next to an author at a table, how did you get started? How did you get started as a book writer? Mine was a little different. Some people have told me that somebody dared them. I dare you to write a novel, and that's how they got started. So I was a voracious reader, and I tell people, have you ever watched the movie Matilda? The little girl who had so many books. I used to read 30 to 55 books a week, and it's still shocking to me that I read that many books. The librarian at the school would say to me, do you really read all those books every week? I say, yeah, why would I check this many books out if I'm not going to read them every single week? So I was just a voracious reader. If you ask me, what do you want for your birthday? Books. What do you want for Christmas? Books. My family thought it was odd, but they also made sure that I had books. Well, when I was 10 years old, we moved. I was born and raised my early years in Dayton, Ohio, and then my dad moved us to Knoxville, Tennessee. And the schools, I want to set the scene a little bit. Schools, bookstores, television was very different when I came up than it is now. There were not as many African-American children books. I mean, I don't even know if I saw any until I read, it was Mildred Taylor's Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. That was the first young adult children's, like middle school books with Black people in it I ever heard of, and I was maybe 10 or 12 years old. Now you see them books everywhere. So I want to set that scene before I say this. There were very, very few of us on TV, radio, any of that. So my sister comes home with this thin book, and I'm the voracious book reader. She's a school teacher today, but she comes in and says, look what I found in the library. And it's a book of poetry by Gwendolyn Brooks. And I'm wondering, how come I didn't find this book? I mean, it was just maybe 5 books by a Black author in the whole school. So I sit down and my sister says, I'm going back outside to play. I don't think she ever read the book. And I read this book of poetry. Now, I have read so many books to this point. I'm 10 years old. And this book had an effect on me unlike any other book I had read. I don't know why to this day, but I felt like I went in almost a time capsule. I cannot tell you the emotion it had on me. And certain characters, I was like, oh, that's like on Ruby, or that one's like this one, or that one. It was just, the characters just leaped off the pages. I put the book down. It's a little thin book again of poetry, Gwendolyn Brooks. Put the book on my bed, and this weird feeling came over me. And I just paused. And then I went, oh, I'm a writer. And that is, and I started writing on my first novel when I was 12, and I think I finished it when I was 18. That was the beginning. That's my journey to becoming a writer.
And that is a wonderful journey. Thank you so much. So let's fast forward from 12 to your first novel to where you are today and all the books that you're written, which one do you want to talk about first?
I can talk first. I know this is we're doing like the podcast, but Porsche is my very first. Porsche is my very first. It came out in August of 1998, so I'll start with Porsche. And I started writing Porsche when I was still in the Navy, and I had when I was going in, they did the exam for me at the Met Center. That's when you get a full physical before they tell you if you can go into the military or not. They had found a lump in my breast. And so then they brought in another senior doctor. They checked it out and they said, you're okay, you can go into the military. Well, after I was either in boot camp, getting ready to come back out to go through A training and then into the Navy regularly, they found another one. And so I was starting to get scared because the younger you are, the more aggressive it tends to be when it shows up. So I'm thinking, I get out, they told me go see another doctor as soon as you get to your first duty station, you get out of all your boot camp, all your trainings. And so I did. And I'm like scared to death. So they sent me to, I'm going to all these different specialists. And in my mind, I'm thinking I'm a goner. I'm not going to be here to see 2023. I'm not going to see it. So I sat down and wrote letters to my family saying, dear grandma, I love you. Thank you for your support. And dear Pat, thank you. I love you so much. And I'm starting to cry as I'm writing these letters because I'm thinking I'm not going to be here. And I wanted them to find them when so they could see just how much I love them. And so years later, that was in the 1980s. So years later, I go back and I revisit those letters, and I can't remember exactly why I did. And it became Porsche. I took the letters, and in here she writes some letters to her family as well. The Thanksgiving scene is like Thanksgiving with my family at my grandparents, when everybody would come over for Thanksgiving. And she is a successful defense attorney living in Chicago, Illinois. She's coming out of a bad relationship, and they always tell you, if you're in a bad relationship, maybe your parents' fault or whatever. Her mother is a Marva Collins type school teacher. Her father was active in the civil rights movement. Her parents have a very loving relationship. So it's a mystery. Why would Porsche pick a guy who would not treat her right? What would make her do that? And maybe we don't have the answers to all of that. But she stayed in that relationship for way, way too long. She finally comes to her senses, and she's single, and she's gonna go. And she's very successful career-wise. She's very successful. So this is a mystery why she was in this relationship. So she goes to an annual Christmas party that's put on by the newspaper in Chicago, and she meets a wonderful, wonderful man there. So her life is really, really on track now. She's got this career going. She's got this wonderful man who loves her, and she loves him. And she has a very supportive family. And so she goes to get a physical, and that's when Dr. Kernan, she finds out she has breast cancer. So it's like, are you kidding me? Everything is just starting to pick up and go, and now I got to deal with this. I'm just starting to get things together. And so this deals with her journey of dealing with breast cancer. Porsche, when I would go to book events, people would come up and they ask me, oh, what's that book about? And I tell them about Porsche. They back away, and I said, it's not contagious. You're not going to catch it just by reading the book. Almost like they were scared.
Right.
But people who did read, I told them it's not a depressing book. This is a very empowering, inspirational book. And so what happened when it first came out in 98, people would give it to their friends. They would give it to people who they knew were going through breast cancer. Here, you got to read this book. Here, you got to read this book. And people would come up to me all the time and said, I gave it to a friend. I read it when I would be out on the road. One of my most touching stories is a woman who told me she gave it to her mother. Her mother had breast cancer, and she had given up. She said, I'm done. I'm checking out. And she said she read Porsche and decided to live. That's like the most powerful feedback I've been given. But this is a family picture of my family. But Porsche she is an amazing woman. She's a very, very powerful woman. It's just her story dealing with breast cancer.
So when did the book come out?
August 98.
So how did you publish it?
I self-published Porsche. I studied the industry. So when I initially started going out with my works, I tried to do anthologies, and you got to keep in mind I was very young. So I went out through anthologies, tried to go through literary agents. They told you can't get a publishing deal back then unless you went through a literary agent. They take 10 to 15% of the, and boom, 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 boom. Well, they won a lot of books by African Americans out, and it really didn't kick off good till Terry McMillan's Waiting to Exhale took off, and she said she promoted that herself with postcards. She was sending postcards out because she had published several books, maybe 3 before Waiting to Exhale took off. But anyway, so I'm telling you, you did not see these numbers of Black books that you see today. So I said, you know what? I'm not waiting anymore. I'm going to self-publish. And it was me and a handful of people. Tracy Price Thompson, she came out, I think it was Black Coffee. Karen Quintos Miller came out. She's from Philly with Satin Doll. And then you had Zane started coming out with her erotica novels, and they took off. There were a lot of, and then there was, he wasn't self-published. He recently passed. Eric Jerome Dickey was the sweetest guy. Eric Jerome Dickey was out. Carl Weber came out. He's got a show on BET now. All of us, we knew each other. And we all came out together. We would go to, I went to an event with Karen, and I think Carl was there. We'd see each other at the Harlem Book Fair years ago. So that, a lot of people started out self-publishing. Right. Of course, Eric wasn't. And then their careers a lot of them just took off. And then I've seen a lot of people I started with, they didn't have the success with the early books, so they dropped out. But I studied the book industry. And one thing I learned, if I could self-publish, get a brand, build a brand through the website. This is way before social media came out. Do direct mail, postcards, etc., radio interviews. I used to do radio, TV. And I could get my name out there. I actually would be able to make more money self-publishing because you get to keep a larger percentage of the sales, because the distributor's taking like 65% off the cut. Then if you have a literary agent, they want 10, 15%. Then your publishers, by the time it gets to you, you might get 2 to 3%. So let me study it and learn how to do it myself. And I am so glad I went down that path.
Nice. So what was the next book? What's the next book you want to talk about?
Oh, the next book was Love Has Many Faces. This one, you know what? And I found that I was kind of writing a pattern. I start out, there's a little small book that I start with, and I didn't notice this till recently. Then I do this big, thick book, like 300-400 pages. And Love Has Many Faces is a murder mystery. It's a celebrity murder mystery. There's an A-list actress. You think of the top movies that are top grossing movies out. And she is really, really dynamo. She can pull them in, getting those people in those theaters. But she's bold. She is just in your face. And she has ticked off the powers that be in Hollywood. And they are no longer giving her these big roles. So she is, down financially. But she's not going to change. So she puts an ad in the newspaper out because she is financially in hard times. And an up-and-coming playwright, Robin, answers the ad. And Robin and Leslie is the actress. They are nothing alike. They are like East-West. They are so different. You wouldn't believe these two women were roommates, but they build this wonderful bridge of friendship. But Leslie is Robin has issues with her mother, and Leslie, her father he's influential, but he's shady. And he's got some shady stuff in his past, and something that he did comes back to haunt them. Yeah, so it's a murder mystery, but it's also the celebrity Hollywood and this wonderful friendship that they build.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right. What's the next one?
And then I wrote Spyro, and Spyro is. I wrote a blog recently about I don't want to scare nobody, but can you talk to like the dead people who you think of a transition? And when that got so much attention, I was shocked. And not talk to the dead like in a scary way, but if you ever had somebody close to you, and I have had past, you're like, if I could just find a way to communicate with this person, they could leave me a sign or something. So in Spyro is set in the 1940s right around the time the country is enthralled in World War II. And there's this very powerful African-American family in Shelby County, which is near Memphis, Tennessee. And Memphis is close to Mississippi. It's not that far from Arkansas. It's down there in the South. So there's Tammy Tilson. She is the matriarch. And I tell people, you think of a woman strong like a Harriet Tubman. That's Tammy. And they own a grocery store when Black folks, you have to almost be the history book to go back in time when there's just things that didn't happen.
Right.
It just didn't happen. And so they own a successful grocery store, and their store is like what the church used to be, and some churches still are, the hub of the community. Anything going on, everybody came to Tilson's. I mean, you didn't come just there to shop, but to find out what's going on, because that's where you could see your friends. You knew they all shopped there. You could see your friends there. You could chat, catch up while you're doing your grocery shopping. Well, there's something in Tammy's past, not going to give it away, dealing with her family, that connects to other things that happen in Spyro. But one of Tammy's sons falls in love with a girl. She's a wonderful young woman, but it's her family. Tammy is just, she's picking up this vibe. Leave this woman alone. Leave her alone, because something in her family. And Tammy's mother had told her, be very careful who you let get on our family tree, because once something happens and is in the family, you're not going to be able to get it out. You're not going to be able to get it out. And so something that from the girl's father, when it all connects. But Tammy this is a murder mystery. Tammy has a granddaughter, and she has a grandson and a granddaughter. And her granddaughter is young. She's like 10. And the grandson, he's around the same age as well. They know stuff that they shouldn't know. And you might hear the term seer, S-E-R, or somebody say the person has vision. They just know things. You don't have to say it. You don't have to. And the son is an artist, and he draws pictures and stuff. There's no way he should know this stuff. It cost him his art. It cost him big time, because it's like there's no way. They're like, I don't want to give a story away, but it's like there's no way he could not have known or whatever. But it's the girl. She is strong, and she's scared about it. She doesn't understand it, but she knows things you shouldn't know. And so can they solve the mystery? These two kids with this gift, can they solve the mystery of what's going on in this town? So that's Spyro. And then I wrote Long Walk Up. I have to tell you how this book came to me. Long Walk Up came to me. Here I go with my rhythm of the size of the books, and I don't know why I did this, but Long Walk Up is kind of like Spyro, Porsche, a small book. This book came to me. I was driving up through from where I used to live in Pennsylvania, up through Princeton, New Jersey. I used to work in that area, and all of a sudden, I'm almost to work, and this came up through me. And I tell people, my inner ears, not these ears, my inner self, it came up through me to write a story about a little girl who had an extremely hard childhood, but who would go on to have this marvelous, glorious, unimaginably good future. And so this became, and I was told to keep this book to 40 to 50 pages. It's really almost 100 pages, because I let somebody read it. And she's set in Africa. I let a woman who was in a doctorate program at Philadelphia read it. She goes, you got to give her a romantic relationship. So it ended up doubling the size of the book. But little Mulligan is 6 years old, and she is orphaned after her mother passes. Her father's passed. They live in what I call a community. Some people call it it's not really a tribe or a village. It's more of a community, and they move around. So they go to places where the vegetation is flourishing, the animals are coming through, and then when it dries up, they have a good strong leader. They'll generally move. Well, for some reason, he's not moving. He's just thinking that we stay here long enough, things will come back. The seasons, it'll replenish. Her mother passes, and the man has his eye on her because he thinks there's something different about her anyway. And he doesn't think she's grieving hard enough. He doesn't think she's grieving the way she ought to. And she knows he's watching her, and he just doesn't think she's like the other kids. So the next morning after her mother passes, she just takes off up this hill, not knowing where it's going, nothing. Just like some of us in our own lives, you don't know which way you're headed, you just take off and make a choice. And she gets to the top of the hill, and then she's regretting her choice, and she's also starting to really question the creator, like, why would you let all this happen to me? And somehow she falls, and she falls down a hill, and she comes into like a market where she hears all these different languages and voices. Anybody who's ever been to Africa, I haven't been to Africa, but Africa is such a rich place. Right. It's so culturally diverse, rich, the languages, everything. And somebody does help her out. But her mother who passed, her mother's spirit helps to guide her. And when she goes into one area where this woman takes her in, and her mother lets her know, you can't stay here. I know you want the comfort, but you have to keep going. This little girl becomes Africa's first woman president.
Okay.
So she's orphaned at 6. She becomes Africa's first woman president. And then let's see. Then I wrote Love Pour Over Me. Here goes another 6 with my. I don't know why I do this, but Love Pour Over Me, and this one is almost 400 pages, over 360 pages. This book, and I can't remember how this story came to me. This is a powerful love story. I'm not a romantic by any stretch. No way. I don't believe in them fairy tales. I just don't. But Rainman is a track and field a standout. He could go to the Olympics, and I mean, he's like a young Usain Bolt type. He's on his way. And this is set in the 1980s. He's living in Dayton. His mother left him when he was 2. But his father has untreated alcoholism. Having alcoholism, period, would be bad enough, but untreated is doubly worse. But he stayed to raise Raymond. So that's a sign he cared, even though he has this brokenness in him. But him and Raymond have this very complicated relationship. Raymond gets a scholarship, and he goes to school. I don't want to say where, but he meets his soulmate, Brenda, while he's at college. But Raymond's got a lot of brokenness. He's got a lot to deal with. And in my novels, I try to be very realistic. And somebody read this, and they're like, I'm done with it. You're making him go through 2. But they finished it. It has a wonderful, wonderful ending. It is this one. There is so many twists and turns in this story, and there's a hidden murder mystery in this story as well. Something that
you love your murder mysteries, don't you?
And I didn't even intend to. I never intended to do that. And Raymond, on his first night at college, he witnesses something, and he meets these 4. These guys. They're friends for life. One of them goes onto the NFL. One of them from Italy. They're all from all different parts, and if the reader has to decide if one of his friends was one of his friends involved in the murder and how involved. He doesn't meet these guys till later. And what would you do if you thought your friend was involved? You didn't witness your friend doing nothing, but as it all starts to unravel, what would you do? And then the wonderful love story between him and Brenda. And then I wrote Awaken Blessings of Inner Love. This is nonfiction. I have, and I'm working on another nonfiction kind of similar to this. And the one I'm working on now is like Tremendous Success. And I forget, that's the working title, and empowerment. And it's a 52-week book, things you can do every week. And if you do them, at the end of the year, your life will be changed. And there's no way it couldn't be. No way. So this one, Awaken Blessings of Inner Love, is taking. I wrote this book so that the reader could do little small things that maybe just take 30 seconds a day, or maybe no more than 5 minutes a day. Because people say, I don't have time. But if you add some daily practices to your day, none of us knows what's coming in our life. I swear, we don't know the next phone call, the next text, the next thing we're going to see, the next thing. We just don't know. And so if you do these daily techniques, they will make you'll always be strong enough to deal with whatever is coming your way. So this is what this book is about. Yeah, and I highly encourage. You know what? When I was younger, when you're young, you think you're invincible, right? You think you know it. When you're young, you think you know everything.
Yes, you do, and you don't.
Why is it? Why is that? I find it amazing. I talk to so many people and they say they were the same way. You think you know everything, and you think you're invincible. You think you can do anything. Okay, how stupid it is. You can just get on through it, get over it, and you think you know everything. And that's why I think a lot of parents and grandparents are so angry with their kids. you can't talk to them, and you know they're headed in the wrong path.
But they have to. You can't. But sometimes you just have to let them go through it because they have to learn that lesson. I've learned that you can tell people don't do this because this is going to happen, but they honestly don't understand until they go through it. So that's why I think all young people, I could think of myself when I was young and I thought I knew everything. You couldn't tell me nothing, Denise. I knew it all. But all the things that I've learned in making those mistakes has brought me to where I am right now. So I don't look at them as mistakes. I look at them all as opportunities. And I learned a lot just bumping my head, right? And just, trying to figure it out. So I think all young people, I think it's necessary so that you really understand what life is all about. And you go through those hard knocks. All your characters have come from places where they've had to learn from their mistakes and go through things and have situations, and they've always come out better on the other side.
That's true. You know what? When I look back, though, I want to talk about my last book, but when I look back at my life, I do wish I had listened more. Because I've heard people say, you can save yourself. And if anybody, when they listen to this podcast, hopefully this will bless somebody. Don't learn everything the hard way. Don't learn everything the hard way. Listen to people who are older than you, who love you. You know they love you. They have your best interest at heart. They're trying to save you some hardships.
Yes. I wish I would have listened to her.
Oh my goodness.
You sound, and I tell that to my children. I wish you would just listen, right? I can save you a lot. I can see things you cannot, right? Because I know, but sometimes. Let's get that last book in there before we run out of time.
Here's the last one, Rosetta, the talent show queen. She's 10 years old in the 5th grade, the best grade at Harriet Tubman School. She said they go from the elementary to middle school. Rosetta is funky. She's witty. She's got so much confidence. She's the baby in the family, though. Her sister and her, they bump heads a lot. And she has a brother. She's cool with her brother. And and it's her mother, her father. Her mother's an artist. Her father's a marketing manager at a top firm in Cincinnati, Ohio. And then they have the pet dog. And her best friend forever, Paulette and her, they always come up with these great ideas. Paulette's a year older than Rosetta, but she has an arch nemesis in school, and this girl is straight A. She's the smartest girl in school. Rosetta thinks the teacher likes her the best, and Rosetta, as much as she hates to admit it, she is constantly competing with her arch nemesis, who is so bright. There's no way Rosetta can outdo her academically, and so they're coming up with the 5th grade, the talent show for the whole school. And so Rosetta comes with this idea. Let's all go ask our parents, our grandparents, your great-grandparents. We are going to showcase our family histories. And it's a very, very diverse school. So they learn about different countries. As the kids, they learn about Puerto Rico. They learn about just different countries at the talent show. So, but Rosetta and her arch nemesis, she is got to stop Rosetta. She cannot let Rosetta shine at this talent show. And so what happens at the talent show? I mean, and then the stuff leading up to the talent show. I'm working on book 2, and in book 2, Rosetta's going to be involved in like a citywide skateboarding contest. And of course, everything can't go right there. But this first book in the series has to do with Rosetta, Miss 5th grade at the school talent show.
Denise, you have written so many books. I've enjoyed listening to all of them. They all sound wonderful. If somebody wants to check you out and get any of your books, where should they go?
Oh, please stop by and visit me at chista.com, TELL.com. You can read free excerpts. You can subscribe for free to the Book Lovers Haven. You can listen to Off the Shelf podcast. Just come and check us out. And you can also order a copy of a book, or again, just read the free excerpts. Whatever you want to do, you can visit as often as you like at Chistel, CHISTELL.com.
Thank you so much for being the newest member to the book club. I suspect that when you get Rosetta's second book out, I want you to come back and share it with us, please, because that sounds like that's going to be a wonderful series. I appreciate you so much, Denise. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of BHP Book Club. I have been your host, Kelly Morgan. I just wrapped up with author Denise Turney as we talked about all of her books, her writing journey. You can go to her website at chisdell.com, CHISTELL.com, where you can see all of her books, learn about her, and connect with her. She is a wonderful author, and I can't wait for her to come back and share more of her wonderful books with us. If you are an author and you want to promote your book on the podcast and become a member of our ever-growing book club, it's simple. Just go to my website, brightheadedpublishing.com, go to the contact section, drop me a line, we'll connect, and before you know it, you'll be on the podcast promoting your book, sharing your journey and your insights with all of us. I cannot wait to meet you. I want to thank everyone who listens to the podcast. I truly couldn't do it without you. I appreciate you so much. Next week, another author, another writing story, more books. But until then, keep writing.